Jake here for American Muscle, and in this video we're taking a look at the SR Performance Sport Coil-Over Kit fitting 2011 and newer rear-wheel drive Chargers, excluding 392 Scat Pack and Hellcat models. If you're looking for an easy and affordable way to lower the stance of your Charger and also improve the handling, then look no further. This coilover kit from SR Performance gives you tons of adjustability with a pretty significant drop in height and improved handling to boot. So if you want a lot of features without having to spend a lot of money, this is going to be the setup for you. These coilovers pack a lot of features in for the price. Now visually, they are going to be able to lower your car up to 3 inches in the front and up to 4 inches in the rear. So it's going to provide a pretty significant drop versus stock. It's also going to help even that out, so if you want to get rid of some of that forward rake, you can. Now that of course means that these are height adjustable as well. You've got collars on the shocks up here and adjustable spring perches for the rear. So you don't have to go all the way down if you live in a place with bad roads or if you'd like to just keep some of that height. But these are not just about looks, there's actually quite a lot going on here. Now you get a set of monotube shocks for the front and rear, and you get 36-way adjustable damping on both. So you can really fine-tune how these ride and handle. If you're gonna be hitting the track, doing autocross, carving up a mountain road, going to the drag strip, whatever, you can simply dial them up here, and it's gonna stiffen everything up. If you're taking a long road trip, bringing the family along or something, just dial them back for a softer ride. Now that's something we don't typically see at this price point. And of course, since these are coilovers, you get new springs front and rear as well. Now these are uprated versus your stock ones too, to accommodate for that drop in height and also to help improve handling and work better with these adjustable shocks. Stiffer springs and shocks means less body roll, less weight transfer as well, so these are going to be a big improvement in the corners especially. Now the front springs here that are already loaded up have a 672 pound rate, while the rears have a 784 pound rate. And as you can see, there is a visual difference as well, so these are going to have a higher spring rate than the ones up front. Now combine all that with the shocks and the lowered ride height, and this is going to make for a stiffer ride versus stock. But again, you do get the adjustability here to soften up the ride, so it's not going to end up being punishing. It'll still be pretty pleasant day to day. Now something else you don't see at this price point is the inclusion of adjustable camber plates up front here. These allow you to correct the negative camber that comes with lowering a car. Since you're changing the suspension geometry and shortening things up effectively by dropping it down, these are going to help correct that, make alignments easier, and allow you the flexibility to dial in the way your car handles a bit more as well. It's a really nice feature to see included at this price point. And again, combined with the adjustable front and rear shocks, these springs, the perches, and all of that, it's a really pretty inclusive kit that we've got here. It's going to allow you a lot of adjustability in how your car looks and rides and handles, so you're going to be able to fine-tune it just the way you like it. Construction here is pretty solid as well. The springs are finished in this really nice white powder coat, and the shocks feature a bit of a textured black powder coat on them too. Makes everything durable and nice to look at as well. You also get new spring perches for the rear like I mentioned earlier, plus the adjuster tools for the collars and perches. Now these don't have all of the flash of some of the more expensive coilovers, but I don't think you're going to be disappointed considering the price and how nice they are when they come out of the box. I know I've alluded to it multiple times throughout the course of this video, but these are going to run you about $800 for the entire setup. And that makes them one of the most affordable choices on the market for these cars, and absolutely the least expensive that also includes those adjustable camber plates. And while again, they may not be the flashiest, they still are going to give your car a cool stance, improve the handling, and allow you some serious adjustability. So if you're in the market, these are an excellent option, especially for something that's not going to blow out your budget. Installation is going to get a 3 out of 3 on our difficulty meter, and you should anticipate this taking you about 4 hours to do, perhaps a little more depending on your familiarity with these sorts of things. Now while this kit doesn't require you to make any modifications to your car, they are going to bolt right in, there is a lot to do here. And since you don't have to mess with a spring compressor, you are going to be able to accomplish this at home should you have the time. You're not going to need any special tools really. And to show you exactly what's involved, let's head over to the install bay now.
The tools you'll need for this project are a 1/2 inch and 3/8 inch impact guns or ratchets, a 3/8 ratchet, a 13, a 15, and a 16 millimeter swivel socket, a 13, 15, 18, and 21 millimeter deep sockets, an extension, a short pry bar, a long pry bar, a tape measure, a 3 millimeter Allen wrench, an 18 millimeter wrench, a 7/8 inch wrench, and a ball peen hammer. Hi everyone, today we're installing a coil-over system on our charger, but first let's watch a short video on how to uninstall the stock suspension. First thing we're going to do is loosen this upper control arm nut first, not fully remove it, just loosen it so that we can break it loose. And we're going to be using our 18mm socket and our impact gun. Now that we've got it loose, what we'll do is we'll hit this with a hammer just to break the control arm free from the steering knuckle. Now just be careful not to hit this rubber boot because you don't want to damage it and cause any grease leaks. Now we'll remove our sway bar link nut here using our 21mm socket. Now you may run into a situation like what we have here where you try to take off that sway bar link nut and the whole thing just spins. If that happens, you can just use a 21mm or a 13/16mm wrench and a 10mm socket and separate the two that way. Now we'll remove our lower strut mount bolt using our 18mm socket. Now we'll remove the upper strut cover cap and two of the 13mm nuts, and we'll loosen the third one. Now we can go ahead and remove our upper ball joint nut and then our last remaining strut bolt at the top. Now you can let this hang a little bit, but not too much because of the brake hoses up here. And then we remove that upper nut. Now I like to put this back on just to keep it from flopping around and causing any damage while we're taking care of the rest of it. Now you want to repeat this process for the other side. Now for the rear, first thing we're going to do is remove the two upper shock bolts using our 16mm socket. Now we'll remove the lower shock bolt using a 15mm socket and an 18mm wrench. Now the next thing is there's a couple of exhaust hangers back here and right here that we need to take out so that we can gain access to our lower control arm bolt. We're going to use our 13mm socket to remove those hangers. Now at this point, since we're up on a lift, we're going to be using a pole jack to support our lower control arm here and make sure that we keep tension on that coil spring, because it is dangerous when you try to remove these and it may pop out on you. If you're doing this at home, you can do this with the floor jack as long as the vehicle is properly supported. Now you want to make sure that you put some tension on this lower control arm using this pocket as your stabilizing point. Now we can go ahead and remove the bolt using our 15mm socket and our 18mm wrench. Now you can carefully lower the control arm to release the tension on the spring, and then we can remove the spring and the shock. Now you can repeat that process for the other side. All right, before we can actually install our system, we need to get a couple things taken care of first. One, we have to have a starting point as to where we want the car to sit once we get it installed. Because there will be some back and forth, installing, uninstalling, readjusting, until you get exactly what you're looking for. So the first thing you're going to want to do is measure from the top of the strut hat here to the middle of the mounting hole at the bottom of the stock strut. That'll give you a good starting point. So when we measure ours, we're coming at 26 3/4 of an inch. So that's from the top of the strut to the center of the mounting hole. So what we're going to do is we're going to lower ours about 2 3/4 of an inch. So we're going to measure ours from the top of the mounting strut here to the middle of the lower mounting bolt hole, and we're going to put that at 24 inches. So to do that, what you're going to do is unlock the locking wheel here just by turning it counterclockwise, and that releases it from the lower half of the strut. Then we're just going to spin the lower half of the strut, check our measurements. We're almost there. One more turn ought to do it. And there we go. We're at 24 inches from the top of the strut mount to the center of the bolt hole. So now we'll just go ahead, turn our locking wheel down, use one of the supplied wrenches to secure it, make sure it's locked into place, and now this one is ready to go. Now the next thing is our coil spring, and it comes with this spacer and height adjuster here, and it's got a locking collar as well. Now this one, if you look at it, and we've already done some of the preliminary work for you, that's why we're explaining it the way that we are. I would recommend going with the way the factory sends this, and it leaves a gap of about 3/4 of an inch between the bottom of the mounting collar here and the adjusting collar. I would recommend leaving it there and starting there as your starting point, and we'll show you once we get this installed how the car sits, and you can make your decisions based on that if you want it to raise it or lower it. If you decide to adjust it, you will need a 3mm Allen wrench. To loosen this locking screw here, you'll back it off, then you can adjust the collar, and then tighten it back up with your Allen wrench. But like I said, I recommend leaving it as is from the factory, and you can make your decision after you get it installed. Now the next thing is going to be adjusting your shock. Now typically what the manufacturer recommends is go ahead and install the front struts, install the rear springs, put your wheels and tires back on, set it down on the ground, check your ride height, make sure that that's exactly where you want it. If you're happy with it, go ahead and lift your car back up, take your wheels and tires off, and then measure the distance on the vehicle from where the shock mounts at the top to the center of the hole where it mounts at the bottom. Now, like I said, we've already done some of the preliminary work for you, and what we've determined based on our ride height is we want 24 inches from the top of the shock mount here to the center of the mounting hole. So we'll go ahead and measure that out, and we're about 23.5. So again, just like the front strut, loosen the lock collar, turn this down, and now we have 24 inches from the top to the center of our mounting hole. That's where we want it to be. Now go ahead and turn our lock collar down. Use the supplied wrench to make sure that it's tight. And you will be able to adjust this a little bit later on when you get it installed. Make sure it's exactly tight the way you want it. Now that we've got everything preset, one thing I did forget to mention earlier, on your front strut, you see that there are two lock collars here. This one at the bottom of the spring, you really don't want to touch or adjust because that's already set the preload on your spring. Leave that one alone, just deal with the one at the bottom. Now let's go ahead and get this stuff installed. Now when you go to install your strut, You want to make sure that the stud on top is facing towards the outside of the vehicle. The bracket at the bottom has the flat side of the bracket facing towards the front of the vehicle, and it's on the inside of the strut itself, not facing out. So we'll go ahead and slide this up into position, loosely attach our nuts at the top just to hold it in place, and then we can go ahead and hook up the bottom part of our strut. Slide that up into position. Now once you've got one on, that's enough to hold it in place for right now, and then we can go ahead and attach the lower strut mount. Now to make it easier to actually put the bolt through for the lower strut mount, I do suggest that you go ahead and reconnect your upper control arm. Now just to make things simpler and easier for you to install that lower strut mount bolt, I do recommend reconnecting your spindle to your upper control arm, just to help hold things in place. All right, now we can go ahead and get our lower bolt installed. Now, if you're doing this on the ground on a set of jack stands, then you can use a floor jack to lift up on your lower control arm here to get your strut mount lined up with your strut. Since we're on a lift, we're just going to use a pry bar in between the lower control arm and the frame and lift that up into position. Now once you've got the bolt through, you can go ahead and take your pry bar out or lower your jack. Now we'll go ahead and attach the supplied nut to our original bolt, and then using our 18mm socket and a 7/8 wrench, we'll go ahead and hold that nut and tighten it down. Now we can go ahead and tighten down our ball joint nut on our upper control arm using our 18mm socket or wrench. Now we're not going to hook up our sway bar link just yet because you do need to have both sides installed. So you need to have both struts installed before you can reconnect your sway bar link. So at this point, we're just going to leave it unconnected, finish up the install, and then we can go ahead and connect our sway bar link once the other side of the front strut is installed. Now let's go ahead and finish putting the nuts on the top of the strut and then move to the rear. And we'll go ahead and put our other two nuts on. And we'll tighten everything down with our 13mm socket. And now that we've got one side done, you can go ahead and repeat that whole process for the other side. And once you get that done, go ahead and connect your sway bar links. Now before we install our rear spring, you need to make sure that this upper insulator here from the old spring is out of place. We won't need that when we install the new spring. So now that it's out, let's go ahead and get our spring installed. Now we'll go ahead and slide our spring into place, making sure, of course, that the flat side of the spring is facing to the top, and also making sure that the lower part of the spring lines up in the insulator at the stop. So once we've got that in, we can go ahead and insert our adjustment collar, like so, and we'll install our little isolator at the top. And now as you can see, there's quite a gap between the top of the spring and the spring mount itself. So we'll just go ahead and raise it up with our pole jack, or if you're doing this on the ground, you can use your floor jack to raise up your lower control arm. Just make sure that your lower control arm mounting bolt pole lines up with the mount on the vehicle. Now just make sure also that the spring mount up at the top slides into the middle of the adjusting collar. Now once you've got your holes lined up on your lower control arm, go ahead and reinsert your bolt. You may need to use like a pry bar for minor adjustments. Once you've got that in, go ahead and put your nut on the other side. And now you can tighten it down with your 18mm wrench and your 15mm socket. So now you've noticed that we haven't installed our shocks yet. Well, there's a reason for that. What you're going to need to do is go ahead and install your spring on the other side of the vehicle. Once you've got that done, put your wheels and tires back on, remove your jack stands or set it down from the lift. Take a look at your ride height, make sure that that's where you want it to be. If it is, great. If it's not, put it back up, remove your wheels and tires, take your springs out, readjust the ride height, do the same thing for the front, put it back in, put your wheels and tires back on, set it down, check your ride height. If you're happy with it, great. Now we can go ahead and install our shocks. Now to install the shocks, what you're going to do is measure from the top of the mounting point there to the center of the hole where your shock mount goes. Once you've got that measurement, then you adjust your shock height. We showed you how to do that earlier. Then you can go ahead and install the shock. So let's go ahead and get that done now. So now that we're satisfied with our ride height, we can go ahead and install our shocks. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this up there into place, install one bolt at the top just to hold it, and then we'll have to compress our shock in order to fit it into the lower control arm. So let's go ahead and get that done. Now with our shock into the lower control arm, we'll put a second bolt in at the top. And we'll go ahead and tighten those down with our 16mm socket. Now we can install our lower shock mount bolt along with our nut. And we'll tighten them down with our 15mm socket and our 18mm wrench. Now you can go ahead and repeat that process for the other side. And once you've got everything completely installed, make sure you go back and torque everything to factory recommended specifications. And then before you take it out for a drive, make sure you schedule and take it in for a full four-wheel alignment. You will need that because we are changing the geometry of our suspension. Now once we've got everything torqued down and put back in place, we can go ahead and reconnect our exhaust hangers using our 13mm socket and our original bolts. And that wraps up our review and install of the SR Performance Sport Coil-Over Kit for the 11 and newer rear-wheel drive Charger, excluding the 392, Scat Pack, and SRT Hellcat. Thanks for watching, and remember, for all things Charger, keep it right here at AmericanMuscle.com.